Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we're hearing from a 26-year-old Canadian athlete who has her honors degree in psychology and is earning her master's degree in counseling psychology while working as a crisis counselor for a suicide line in Winnipeg. And she's a certified personal trainer and nutritionist and the owner of a cosmetic teeth whitening business. And she fell in love with lifting weights after being a competitive dancer and acrobat for 15 years. And after working out consistently for 5 years, she decided to compete in September of this year. Well, at least the year that we're recording this, September of 2021, where she won the overall, and the next day competed at the Canadian National Pro Qualifier, where she won her IFBB Pro card. And then she just competed this past weekend and got third place at her pro debut, which was just so awesome. So she's had a whirlwind of a year. We're going to hear all about it. Welcome to the show, Adair Libbrecht. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you. What a great intro that was.
Oh, you're welcome. It's easy. You're so accomplished.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you and just chat and get to know, share a little bit more of my story.
Yes, me too. I'm excited to get to know you more and share that with everybody else. And I just loved watching your journey to the stage. And I didn't know much about your life outside of competing, but then having had you invited on here and then reaching out and kind of discussing more and seeing your form that you sent through, I was really, really amazed. And like we talked about before recording, we've got a lot in common, which is so cool. But I want to know, as you know, I always like to start with this. Is there anything you do or think about right before your heel hits the stage?
So I mean, I don't have a lot of shows under my belt where I've really come up with like a ritual per se. But one thing that I did do before the pro qualifier and that I did this past weekend too before my pro debut was, have you ever seen the movie Burlesque with Christina Aguilera?
I've seen it one time.
Yeah, so I love that movie, but so what I did was I put on the playlist from that and kind of just in my hotel room, I get my jewelry on, my suit on, I get all my glam, and I just kind of jam out a little bit for about like 10, 15 minutes, however much time I have. And I found that really just helped me like boost my confidence, feel ready for the stage. And then, I mean, like backstage right before I go on, I just kind of like, say to myself, you've got this, the work is done, just go out there and like show everybody what you've been able to accomplish and have fun with it.
Yeah. Sort of. I love that little bit of energy boost, and then you pump yourself up with some good encouragement, which I think is great. And honestly, you've done so well. Like I was saying in your interview or in your introduction, you went from your first show to qualifying for nationals the next day, doing that show, and then getting third at your pro debut after winning your pro card. So I want to hear more about this journey. And when you stepped on stage for the first time, did you expect or want to qualify for nationals and compete the next day? Or was this something you're like, well, shoot, we did it. Let's go and compete?
Well, it was definitely kind of on my radar of thinking that the next day I would probably qualify and be able to compete in the national show. But it was actually kind of funny because that wasn't supposed to be my original show. My original show was supposed to be in July here in Winnipeg, actually. And with COVID and everything, it got postponed. So when we were kind of like trying to reevaluate what shows to do, we saw that there was the National Pro Qualifier, and the day before the regional show. So we kind of just said, well, I mean, why not? You'll already be there. Might as well do the regional show. And if I qualify, then go right ahead and do the national one the next day. Kind of two in one sort of deal.
Yeah, it paid off, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So what were your expectations going into nationals after, like, literally the next day? Like, what did you and your coach change, and what did you discuss before hitting the stage?
So I tried to go into it, I mean, with no expectations. Like, there was definitely a lot of talk about me winning my pro card at that show, and you know, how well I was going to do, but I didn't want to put that sort of pressure on myself. So I kind of just said, you know, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then I'll keep going, and I'll get it another time. But we just we used almost the Friday night show as like a warm up, which I really, really actually enjoyed, because it kind of got my nerves out, got me used to the stage, because I had never stepped on stage before. So just to kind of experience what it's like to do, you know, comparisons, your routine, have everybody watching you up there. And then Saturday, I felt a lot more calm and relaxed, just knowing what to expect.
Yeah, that is true. I sometimes I find that when people do a warm-up show or a warm-up class, like if you compete in novice and then you compete in open, a lot of times, like by open, you're much more comfortable on stage.
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of did that in the Friday night show too. Like, I was in the novice and the true novice. And by, like you said, the open, I was feeling even more confident in the Friday night. So by Saturday, I just felt a lot more confident with myself, which I think really, really helped me to win the
Yeah,
show card.
that's awesome, because you were coming off of a high, and you'd pretty much swept that show, right?
Yeah. I won all my classes and the overall.
Yeah, you swept it. That's awesome. Your coach was probably like, okay, that's a pro on. Well, actually, I think I saw your coach post that that was a pro on an amateur stage. And I was wondering, because you said, you know, you relieved the pressure from yourself. You didn't want that on you. But how did it feel to have your coach believe in you like this and say these types of things and have these high expectations?
You know, it's kind of funny, because when I started the prep, I had no like intention of going pro. I just kind of wanted to prove to myself that I could do a prep and actually complete it. And then when James kind of started to say, like, oh, you can go pro, like, your shape is great, your genetics are great, and just kind of putting that thought in my mind, I still didn't really believe him. Almost like, I was kind of like, okay, yeah, sure, like, maybe you're just pumping my tires. But then, if you know James, you know he doesn't say anything that he doesn't mean. So I kind of started to like think it myself. I'm like, okay, I can do this. And I guess just like the further along in the prep that I got, and the more that I got through like the obstacles of prep and overcoming all of that stuff, I started to really believe that I could do it. And I mean, having that pressure, a lot of people, I think, probably wouldn't like it or do well under it, but I actually, like, I thrive under pressure in a weird way. So when like somebody has kind of that expectation of me, I'm like, well, you know, I got to live up to it. I got to make sure I'm doing the work, because if I don't put in the work and I don't do everything that I can, then I'm going to regret it in the end. So I'm definitely the type of person that does well under pressure. So I think for me personally, it actually really benefited me to have that kind of pressure on me going into the show.
I really like that perspective. And actually, that is interesting, because when I heard you say that you like, or you do well under pressure, I'm like, oh, that explains why she's doing so much in her life too.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that, like, if, you know, I need to be doing a million things a
Yeah.
day, otherwise then nothing gets done. I need to feel like I almost don't have enough time in the day.
Yeah.
And that's how I function best, weirdly.
I totally get that. Like, I like my breaks. I like taking time to relax for sure. But I also crave having things to do. I love when I'm like on a schedule or I have all these things to check off. I'm just in, I don't know, it's like I get more ideas, I get more stuff done. I'm like, I prove myself wrong a lot more. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's like you just get in a flow of like bang, 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 getting everything
Yes.
off that list.
I used to always tell my coach, she's a friend of mine as well, but we talk about business and stuff. And I used to always say it's like, I call it biz boner, like a business boner, when you're just like destroying everything, you're killing it, and it just feels so amazing. Like, I don't know, it's just a cute little thing.
I love that. I'm gonna start to use that.
Do it. Yeah, I'm glad that's not weird. People are probably just like, that is a weird share, but okay.
No, but like I totally like I resonate with that. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Good. I'm glad. So yeah, so you thrive under pressure. This is something that you felt actually pushed you to show up and perform better and not leave anything on the table. And you decided to compete to prove to yourself that you could follow through with your prep and do this for yourself. But before that, you had been a lifestyle client. So I was really curious about what your goal was as a lifestyle client and then how that turned into becoming a competitor.
So, I mean, before I even competed, I'd been kind of living like the bodybuilding lifestyle for probably like 3 or 4 years. Like I would go to the gym twice a day. I do cardio, I do weights, I would be eating 6 meals a day. Like I was basically living the prep life already. But I was really into yo-yo dieting. So I would do like the crash diets, and then like obviously that's not sustainable, and then I'd fall off of it. And so I just didn't really ever find that, I guess, balance for myself. And I had kind of gone through like I guess like one of the phases of the yo-yo dieting and then falling off of it. And I just remember I was so fed up with that cycle. And I had been following, James and some of his athletes for a while, people like Jen Dory and like Laura Lee. And I looked up to them so, so much. And I always just thought it would be so cool to be one of his athletes or be one of those girls that like he posted about with this crazy transformation. And one day I was just like, you know what? I'm so sick of this back and forth. I'm just going to reach out and see what it would be like to maybe be a lifestyle client. So it was kind of more so I was just fed up with my own self. And that's how I kind of reached out to start the lifestyle programming with them. And it's funny because when I started the lifestyle as a lifestyle client, I actually got my program and it was more food than I had ever eaten before in my life, more carbs, more everything. And it scared me. And I actually didn't follow it for about 2 months and kind of was like, oh, this isn't going to work, didn't believe it. And then once again, got fed up with myself and not being able to do it on my own and kind of came back and was like, okay, I'm ready to try it your way, essentially. And yeah, and then so once I started to actually like follow the diet and like see how my body responded, after that, I was just like, I was hooked.
Wow. That's really interesting. So before getting your program, you had done a lot of yo-yo dieting and you hadn't maybe found the right approach for yourself. And then this was put in front of you and it was a lot more food than you were expecting. And I know that in the past you had struggled with some mental health issues, and one of those being binging. Now, did that play a role in how you felt about the programming?
Yeah, like I think I was just so used to like any program I had ever gotten before was, your classic, don't eat carbs, just eat chicken and asparagus 6 times a day. And that's kind of where my like binging would stem from, because I would follow, you know, this strict, super low carb diet Monday through Saturday. And then I had my like cheat day Sunday, right? And would just go off. And then it would be Sunday evening and I'd be like eating spoonfuls of peanut butter from the jar in the kitchen, not being able to stop myself, with that, you know, mentality of like, oh, I have to get back on my diet tomorrow morning. So I better get this like last spoonful of peanut butter in, right? So I never really thought that eating more, I guess, would ever benefit me, because I just had never really been able to get on track with eating whole healthy foods all week.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I literally went through the same thing where it was just restrictive diet. And then on the weekends, it was like permission slip to eat everything and anything. And I'd literally stay up until midnight. And as soon as midnight hit, I'd be like, okay, everything clean now until next time. Like it was really unhealthy and bad, but that's how I thought.
Right. And you're like, oh, Monday morning comes around, back on the grind. And then you're counting down the days to your next Sunday, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then during the week, it's like, oh, everything's great, everything's fine. And if I want something, I'll just put it on my list for this weekend, rather than being like, well, if I want an Oreo and I'm just doing this for a lifestyle, I should just have one, because that's going to be better than 30 on Sunday where I'm not even going to enjoy it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the way I was.
Yeah. I knew we had some similarities, and I know that influences your approach as a coach too. And I definitely want to talk to you just about how you got into that. But before we do, I want to talk to you more about your journey and through competing, through prep, and all of this. And you had your background in athletics, and I was hoping you could share how your dance background influenced your fitness and competing journey, if at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely did, looking back on it. It was very like competitive, and I was a part of like an aerial acrobatic troupe that you know, it was very strict. We had long practices, like 5-6 times a week, all that sort of stuff. So in a weird way, it kind of was like similar to prep in the sense where it was very rigid, and you know, you have to follow everything to a T. So I think that's kind of always been inside of me, and I've always really liked that sort of a structured routine, which is probably why I love and I thrive in prep. And then I also just think some of like being able to, you know, perform in front of people. Granted, I don't think that the dance is anything similar to posing, because I mean, if you've posed, you know, it's not a natural thing to do, and it's very, very difficult. But I think just even having the practice of being in front of people and kind of having to put on that stage presence really did help me this year, and with everything, all the shows that I did.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you had mentioned that that dance background was rigid, and then you had this history with the rigid dieting and the yo-yo dieting. And then you got into your lifestyle phase, which helped you to build up how much food you were eating and your comfort level with that. And you were able to utilize the discipline from dance and apply it to prep next. And in a post you made, you had said that prep is one of the most difficult but most rewarding things that you've ever done. And I was hoping you could share why you feel that way about your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of people don't really know this, but like before I started my prep, I was in a really dark place about a year ago, just no confidence in myself. I didn't really know who I was anymore. I didn't know where I wanted to go in life. Like just struggling a lot. I was, some days like I didn't want to get out of bed. I was like struggling with some anxiety and stuff like that. And I just remember feeling so like hopeless and defeated. And I made myself a promise, and I was like, well, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And if I'm in this position a year from now, like that, I can't have that happen. Like something needs to change. Something needs to be different, because I felt so helpless. So that's kind of when I started the lifestyle, and I just made sure that I like went through with it, and I like dove into personal development and like anything, podcasts, books, anything personal development to like help with my mindset and all of that, is what I kind of started out my prep doing. And I think that especially like prep is hard, dieting, the training, the cardio, it's all hard, but I think it's the mindset part of it that really is the hardest part. And so for me, it was, being able to overcome all of those super difficult times and just push through all my doubts and stick to my word, almost, of needing to change and applying all these different personal development like techniques and mindset techniques and stuff like that. So that for me was like the most rewarding part of the prep, was not even the physical change, but the mental change and the growth that happened inside of me because of it.
Ooh, I love that. I think it's really amazing how you were able to take yourself from that darkness and utilize prep not as a way to avoid those things, but rather to actually invite you to explore them further. And it sounds like you invested your time into that and recognized, okay, if I'm going to do this for my physical self and physical body, my mind has to be able to support me. And if I can't get out of bed, or I'm feeling down and helpless and I don't know who I am, how can I get the most out of this? And you utilized a lot of personal development tools. What were some of the things that you found most helpful for you that maybe others could benefit from if they're where you were?
I think I do a lot of journaling. So like that's one that I will always recommend. And I mean, I recommend it to my clients too. Like I used to be so anti-journaling. I hated the thought of it. But then I just started like with, 2 minutes a day. That's all I'm going to do. Like, I'm just going to do 2 minutes. Once that 2 minutes is up, I'm going to close the book and I'm going to put it away. And I didn't really like put any expectations on myself for that. And then, as time goes on and you realize just how beneficial it is to even get your thoughts out on paper, and how much more clear your mind is once you do, then it just, like anything, becomes a habit and it doesn't seem as painful as it did at the beginning. So like journaling was one that was really, really beneficial for me. And also like gratitude too. Like, I think it's so important that like to start every single day just being grateful, like whether it's the smallest little thing. Like I remember at the beginning when I was in a dark place and I didn't feel like I had a lot to be grateful for. Like I would write down, I am grateful for the coffee I'm drinking right now. Just like even the smallest little things. And it can switch your mindset to look for the positives, and instead of finding the negatives in things, and it just kind of switches your mindset as a whole to be more positive. I find when you look at everything from a gratitude perspective. So those are the two that really, really helped me.
I love that. Yes, I think it's so important to journal as well. That's one of my favorite tools. And there's actually research that shows that journaling really does help clear your mind and clear your thoughts, because it takes something that feels very abstract, like our thoughts that we can't necessarily feel or see, but we experience, and then puts them on paper and makes them become more tangible, whether that's tangible in the sense you can crumple it up and throw it away, or tangible in the sense you can sort through it. But it is very beneficial. And I like how you said earlier you just wanted to follow through on your word. That's something you started to do, is really follow through for yourself. And then you said you set like a 2-minute timer. And I love that because you really built that muscle of, I'm going to show up for myself. This is my commitment. And then you got the benefit and you kept going, and it developed further from there. I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, also too, when you like say that you're going to do something and you actually do it, that's what builds the confidence in yourself. And that's how you are able to build yourself up when you're not feeling super confident or good about yourself. It's just following through on the small little things that you say that you're going to do. And over time, it all snowballs, and you're, you end up feeling better about yourself because you've stuck to your own word, right?
Exactly. Yes. Like if there's a fuzz on the carpet that you've been staring at and you haven't picked up in the past 2 weeks, or there's laundry that's still sitting on the chair in your room, but do it, get up and do it. It makes a difference, and you're never too far gone. Like just because you haven't done it yet doesn't mean it's not worth doing right this moment or right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And those little things, like you said, they do go a long way. And I think part of being successful as a competitor, as a student, a business owner, you have to have routine. And it sounds like you've got a solid morning routine. Is there anything you do in the afternoons or evenings that you feel help you commit to your goals?
Um, I definitely have a more like you said, a set morning routine. My evenings are more so, I would just say, time for myself. They don't really necessarily look the same, but I always just make sure that I give myself, whether it's 20 minutes or, an hour, to just relax, unwind, whether that's like reading in bed or, watching a TV show. Um, I start my days pretty early, and I like to get things done first thing in the day because that's when I'm most productive, I'm most motivated. So by the time nighttime rolls around, I find just nice to kind of relax and almost like reward myself for checking all the boxes that day. So I mean, lately I've really been into Epsom salt baths. That's my go-to because my body's been so sore. But just any sort of like self-care that makes me feel good and gets me ready to go to sleep, sort of thing.
Love that. Yeah, I think sometimes we try to complicate self-care or self-improvement when really it can be these simple things that go a long way as long as we're really intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So you do a lot outside of competing, and I was hoping you could share your schedule because you have your job, your school, you have your training and nutrition business, you got your teeth whitening business. Walk us through a normal day, and then I want to hear how you got into all these things.
So I'm not in school, which makes it a little bit easier. That starts up in January. So it makes it a little bit easier with prep and stuff. But I mean, normally, like I would wake up, I do my posing or my check-ins if I need to, stretching, I get my fasted cardio done. I come home, and then normally in the mornings is when I do like any sort of client work that I need to do, stuff like that. And then I usually try to train midday, mid afternoon, um, just because it's when I find I have the most energy and I get the best workouts in. And then after that, if I have any teeth whitening clients, I go and I do that. Um, and I mean, every single day is kind of different because with clients and stuff like that, the times that they can make it and I can make it. But typically I try to do that in the evenings, and get most of my like prep stuff and my training and everything done earlier on in the day. And then, yeah, anything else that's left in the evening, is when I usually do that.
That's awesome. And how did you get into the training in nutrition, and then how'd you get into teeth whitening?
So the training in nutrition was kind of like a COVID project, just because I, was stuck at home, and I've always loved researching, nutrition and workouts and training, and like I've taught myself everything I know basically from just like researching online and all that sort of stuff. So when COVID hit, and I was like, well, what should I like do with my time? I should do something beneficial. And I was like, well, I could get certified, and then I could actually, start coaching people, because I'd always like helped, friends or family here and there if they'd ask me to make them a diet or a training program, but it wasn't anything ever official. So when I decided to do that, it was so I could, pursue something that I actually love, more so than just kind of helping friends and family. And then the teeth whitening was just pretty random, actually. I think it was advertised on Instagram one day about getting certified for like teeth whitening. And I was serving at the time in a restaurant. And because I was a server from the time I was like 18 till probably like 24. And I was just kind of getting fed up with like, the late nights. It wasn't really lining up with my schedule anymore. And so I saw it advertised online. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, and I've always had I guess a weird fascination with having white teeth and taking care of my own teeth. So I was like, well, why not? Nobody here in Winnipeg was doing it yet. So I just kind of said like, oh, that'd be a cool, fun side thing to do. And I did it, and it took off. So it ended up working out really, really well.
How did you go about advertising and getting the word out there?
It was more so just like word of mouth, Instagram too, that sort of thing. I tried to just kind of, the people that I knew or my parents. Like the nice thing with teeth whitening is everybody can whiten their teeth. It's not just to a set demographic, like with lash extensions or something like that. So all my clients range from like, I have teenagers all the way to in their 60s. So just kind of word of mouth, and people referring to me as well.
That's awesome. Is teeth whitening painful?
It can be, depending on the procedure, but the way that I do it is one of the least painful ways that you can do teeth whitening. Like a lot of dental teeth whitening can be super, super painful. But the one that I use is with a UV blue light, so it causes like little to no sensitivity.
And what would be the difference between someone going to you and then someone using, like, I know there's tons of at-home products, so I'd love if you could explain the difference.
So they're similar in the sense where they both use gels, but the difference is kind of the degree of how strong each gel is. So like the at-home gels are the least strong. And that's why you have to, use them every single day for 14 days or whatever the package says to see any sort of results. Whereas with mine, it's an hour, you come in, and I personally apply the gel, which is a stronger version than the ones that you would get from anything over the counter. And takes an hour, and then it lasts like 3 to 6 months too, which is awesome. You only have to do it the one time. And then there's the dental whitening, which is stronger than the one I use. But because of that's where you get a lot of the sensitivity and the painfulness that comes with the dental whitening.
Interesting. And what is it called? What is what you do called, like the procedure?
So it's using like a UV blue light, essentially, in combination with a hydrogen peroxide gel.
Nice. Well, that's so interesting. I just think it's cool how much you've invested in as far as your passions and things that you enjoy. And you obviously like to spend your time doing these different things. And part of that is also your coaching business. And I always love to hear how people have applied their own experiences in fitness to the work that they do with clients. So, can you tell us more about what you do as a coach and how you've applied your experiences?
Yeah, I mean, for me as a coach, I I like to do kind of approach it super personal in a sense. Like
Mhm.
I don't like the factory coaching where everybody gets, the same thing and you're just kind of like a number on a checklist. So I really try and like build a relationship with my clients, and we message back and forth about what's working, what's not working. We talk about more than just the diet and the training. We try to incorporate a lot of the mindset stuff that I've personally gone through and that I've found helpful. um because I do, like, I we were talking about before. I mean, I think mindset and the psychological aspect is such a huge portion of fitness that isn't talked about, but it's so critical to being successful in fitness. Like, if you don't have a healthy mind, how do you expect to have a healthy body? It goes hand in hand, right? So
Mhm.
I try to just really use those like techniques and kind of just educate my clients about the importance of not only diet and nutrition, but of taking care of your mind too.
Absolutely. And on that subject, have you received your I think did you guys call it honors degree there in psychology, and then now you're pursuing counseling. So what inspired you to study these subjects?
I mean, I've always just had a passion and interest in psychology. I find like just how people work and how the brain works just so fascinating. So I've been studying it ever since high school. And then I kind of went back and forth on like where I wanted to go with psychology. And I had originally thought that I wanted to be like a psychiatrist. And, I did all the different avenues. I thought maybe like school psychology. But then, I mean, it kind of dawned on me that like I love, coaching and working with people. And that's exactly what counseling is. Like, you're working with people to help make their lives better, to help them feel better about themselves. So it just kind of clicked, I guess, one day that counseling was the avenue where I think I could make the most difference, and how I could kind of combine my love for fitness with my passion for psychology too.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I love that. I was just talking to an old client of mine this past weekend about how she knows some people who do like movement therapy, where they're literally getting, counseling while performing some sort of movement. And this can be really, really healing for people. And I think it's cool that you want to combine the worlds. I don't know exactly how you plan on doing that. Do you have like a vision for what you want to do once you get your master's degree?
Yeah, like I don't have necessarily a set plan yet. I just know that I want to somehow be able to incorporate them together, whether that be offering more of like combined packaging of fitness
Mhm.
and counseling programs, or maybe doing them separately. I'm not entirely sure, but I know that for me personally, the mindset part of fitness made such a difference that I really just want to like educate people on it and kind of, I guess, get like the word out of how important it is.
Yeah, of course. I I think that it is the most important thing, like, period.
Yeah.
No diet, no training plan, no new diet or training plan, no macro plan, no stage, no prep, no improvement season is going to fix whatever's happening in your mind. That's going to be a whole different approach. It's going to require a different level of attention. And we were talking earlier before recording, just so you guys know, listening, about how I really don't like the rah mentality that kind of comes out in the fitness industry, like, oh, you should be more disciplined, just pull it together, or you're a failure, and oh, just get motivated. It's like, well, hold on, there's a lot more happening underneath the surface. And I think sometimes fitness can be like a bandage to those deeper wounds. And I think it's great that people are, seeing that needs to be addressed.
And I think also too, like, if, people, when they say, oh, you just need to suck it up and be disciplined. But I mean, if you just took a minute to stop and think about maybe why you're not feeling motivated, or what's the cause behind why you can't follow your diet, that then you're going to have more success being able to stay disciplined and follow the diet, rather than just, oh, suck it up and keep going. If you don't fix what's breaking it, how are you going to have it from not breaking again in the future, right?
Exactly. Like, it's so much better, honestly, as much as it can suck sometimes. Like, I'll have competitors reach out and be like, oh, I never wanted to be the girl who admits that she struggles, with adherence or with her body image or with food, but it's happening to me and I need help. And I'm like, well, this is a really good step that you're taking, because at the end of the day, if you don't take that step, you're never going to learn what you need in order to be successful long term, right? So, like, if you just keep pushing it under the rug, or you say, well, I'll just push through it, or it'll heal with time. Not if you keep doing the same thing, So I think it is really, really good that you also believe and promote that it's important to focus on these things.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is a random question. How does your coaching style vary from maybe types of coaching or programs you've done in the past?
I would say the main thing would be that I really don't, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't, not like, get mad at people when they don't follow it. Like, I know some coaches out there, when, you don't follow a program or you mess up on your diet, they're like, well, how do you expect to see results? You need to follow this. I don't think that that's beneficial. I think that, life happens and we're all human. And I mean, especially with lifestyle, like, you're not trying to prep and step on stage. So, if you mess up and you have a few extra cookies, it's not the end of the world and it's going to be okay. And I don't think that, shaming anybody because they do that is a good thing. And I think that's also what causes a lot of, problems with disordered eating or bad relationships with food, is people get almost like in trouble for eating that extra cookie, or like have that bad reputation surrounding different types of foods. So I really try and just, have my clients look at foods the same way. Like, every food is okay. Nothing's good, nothing's bad. You just have to learn what works for your body. Like, yeah, you can eat the cookie, but are you going to feel good tomorrow? Is it going to upset your stomach? Are you going to have digestion issues? Like, it's okay to have it, but in the long run, how are you going to feel having it? So that's kind of like the approach that I like to take, is find what works for you. Like, some people can eat sweet potatoes all day, every day. I can't. Like, I do not digest sweet potatoes well, so I don't eat them. So I think it's just kind of finding what works for each individual person.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think everyone lives a different life too. So the personal approach is important. And I know that you love to travel. How do you structure your lifestyle around traveling? And has that changed since becoming a competitor?
I mean, for the most part, like when I travel, I try to just make sure, I guess it depends on the trip, but like just make sure I'm active, and eating foods that are going to make me feel good. So I don't necessarily, like if I'm going on a trip with my family or something, or, a fun vacation, I'm not going to be super rigid unless, I mean, I was in prep, but that hasn't happened. So
Mhm.
um, I just try and make sure that, like, I enjoy myself. I like, treat myself to the things that I want when I want them, but that I'm not overdoing it and that I'm still being active. And I mean, with COVID, I haven't been able to travel a lot in the past little bit, which has been too bad. But
Mhm.
I'm excited for more traveling, hopefully, this upcoming year with
Yeah.
shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that. How did your experience go competing in the US?
It was good. It went really smoothly, actually. I mean, it was kind of a hassle to, we have to get the COVID test to go down, and then you have to get one to come back into Canada, and it has to be within a certain, like, um 72 hours or something. I think it was like that.
Mm.
So that part was a little bit of a hassle, but I mean, besides that, it was relatively smooth, and like nothing bad or crazy happened trying to get down there, which was good.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good. I want to talk to you about your preps and about just again, kind of like your journey and how it all led to Ben Weeder Naturals this past weekend. So, what are your preps like, or what have they been like?
Um, so it's funny because I feel like I've been on prep for ages. I actually started my prep like first week of January. Um, and I really haven't stopped. Like I took, I think, like a few days off after I won my pro card when I thought I was going to be taking an off season. And then we decided to go ahead with my pro debut.
Yeah.
So I jumped right back into prep. So I basically, I think I counted the other day and it was like I've been on prep for like 47 weeks or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it all kind of feels like it's blurred together. But um, I mean, for the most part, like it's been super smooth. Like I've been on pretty decent amount of food for like most of it. There's always going to be those weeks where, you have to push a little harder or your cardio gets increased a little more, your food gets dropped a little more. But I think, like, it's only temporary and it's only for a short amount of time. So when those, weeks happened, it was just kind of like, okay, it's going to be like this for a couple weeks and then it's going to come back up and I'm going to, get my energy back and it's going to be good again.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think doing long preps though teaches us so much and shows us what we're really capable of, and that's what you went into it hoping for.
Yeah, it definitely has taught me a lot of discipline. And it's funny because like I said earlier, used to be the girl like every Sunday, cheat day Sunday
Hmm.
religiously. And the thought of going a week without like a cheat or something was, I couldn't even like fathom the thought of that before. And now it's like, oh yeah, no problem. I don't need that anymore.
Totally. Now, are you glad that you turned pro the same weekend you had your first show, or is there anything you would change about your journey?
No, I don't think there's anything I would change about my journey. I mean, I know that I'm definitely not, my journey's not like a lot of other competitors. It's a very different one. Um, but I like, that's kind of why I love it too, is that it's unique to me. And um, I just know that I like fell in love with prep and competing, and I just went for it. So I think that the fact that, I had my first show and then I went into the national show just kind of solidified that this is what I love and this is what I'm kind of meant to be doing.
Yeah. I think that's really, really awesome. And you've come a long way too. I mean, to have achieved as much as you have. And obviously, it probably paid off to go through that lifestyle phase and then enter into prep. And now you've had this great experience that, yes, it's different, but it's unique to you. And that's what makes it great. How did your training differ over the various shows you did? Did it change based on feedback, or did you guys just keep going based on how you were looking?
It definitely did change. Like at the beginning, it was kind of more of like a body recomp that we were doing. And then as I started to lean out, we realized that I needed to grow my upper body a little bit more. So I really focused on that, going into the national show. And then after that, it was still kind of the same feedback that I needed to grow my upper body a little bit more, and like a little bit in my glutes. So from, the national show to my pro debut, it was more so kind of just fine tuning. But I will say that like as my preps went on, my training mentality almost changed a little bit. And I think that also might have had a little bit to do with COVID and stuff, because back when I started my prep was when there was, a lot of restrictions still. There was like an hour time limit at the gym. So it was like you had to be in and out in an hour. So I was doing, a lot of like supersets, stuff like that. And then during my prep for a while, actually, the gyms did close down. So at that point, it was kind of just getting in the workouts wherever, whenever I could. And then as, things started to open back up, I really wanted to grow. So I shifted that mindset from, okay, like stop doing the supersets and, the 15 reps of everything, and really try and push some heavy weight, to grow, and more sort of that kind of training towards the end.
Yeah. Okay. That's really cool. So you had gone from really just having to flow with how life was changing because of COVID and various restrictions to then being able to really hone in on what you and your coach wanted to do to improve. Was your feedback to grow your upper body, or was this something you guys noticed?
We noticed it before the show.
Okay.
So James had kind of mentioned that I was very lower body dominant and I needed to match my upper body to get that X frame. And then after my first show, that was some of the feedback too, that I still could grow, my shoulders, my back a little bit more. So that's what I really tried to focus on going into my pro debut.
Awesome. And did you get feedback from that yet?
We did, yeah. So my feedback was that I was a little bit too hard, which we also knew going into the show. My body just, it was super weird. I woke up on show day and I like had dropped 4 pounds like
Oh,
overnight.
wow. Did you sleep a
Yeah.
lot or?
No, not really. Like I think it was just a combination maybe of like nerves and travel, and we're not really sure what happened, but my body just like started burning through food like crazy. So we knew going into the show that I was a little bit too lean. And that was exactly what my feedback was.
Wow. Okay. So what's your goals? What are your goals now?
So I am actually now 2 weeks out from Toronto Pro.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, I'm going to be doing that in 2 weeks. So what we're trying to do now is basically just gain some of that weight back and get me back up to where I was before Ben Weeder, and then hopefully bring in a a more fuller package to that one.
That's awesome. So are you eating more or?
Yes, I am eating a lot of food at the moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, a little bit too much. It's hard to get down sometimes, but
Yeah, I think it's funny. Like people who eat a lot wish that they weren't eating so much, and people who don't get to eat as much always want to eat more. But then if the roles are reversed, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of food.
yeah, exactly. It's like never a happy medium, it seems like.
Yeah, that seems to be competing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I love that you really have been focusing on improving every show, and clearly you have. And we had a listener who wanted to know if you had any tips for growing as far as upper body and lower body.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, training, like I live by mind to muscle connection. Like, I think that is the most important aspect of training that you could ever focus on. And that's how I grew my glutes was I really find the exercises that work for me and my body, because everybody's different and you're going to feel different exercises in different parts of your body. So I would just say, honestly, like finding the exercises where you feel that muscle the most and then just keep doing them. Like, I don't think it's beneficial, especially when you're trying to grow, to like always be switching up your exercises and trying something different. Because a lot of the time, like the first time you do an exercise, you probably don't have the technique or the form down just right. It takes, a couple training sessions to really find that perfect sweet spot for yourself. And then once you do, that's when you can start adding the weight and doing different techniques, whether it be drop sets or like rest pause, things like that, to progressive overload and really challenge that muscle so that it does grow.
Mhm.
But I would say, like, yeah, mind to muscle connection has made such a big difference for me. Like, if I go into the gym and I do an exercise, let's say like for glutes, and I'm not feeling it in my glutes that day, like I won't I won't do the exercise because it's not beneficial for me to just go through the motions unless I'm really, really connecting with that muscle.
Yeah, definitely. So do you get like a list of exercises to choose from, and then you just do it based on whatever rep range you've been given?
Yeah, it's basically kind of like you need to do this many for this certain body group and kind of the rep range, and then I can kind of pick and choose what works best for me.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you sharing that insight into how you approach your training and how things have changed, since the start of this year. Do you have any advice, maybe your best advice for girls who have never competed before but want to, and then your best advice for those on their road to pro?
Um, for girls that have never competed before that want to, honestly, I would say just do it. Like, I don't think if you like something or not until you try it. And I know, like, for me, the thought of competing was such a scary thought, and it seemed like I would never be able to do it. But, like, you never know until you try. So I think if you have any, sort of want or you think it's cool or desire to like try it, like just go for it. And I mean, if you go for it, then I would say kind of part two to that advice is do it the right way and, hire a good coach that knows what they're doing. Because I've heard, I mean, so many horror stories of first time competitors that hire the local coach that doesn't know anything and just ruins, their body and their metabolism, and it makes the experience not enjoyable for people. So I would say, like, if you're going to do it, then just make sure you have somebody that knows what they're doing so that it can be an enjoyable experience for you. And then I guess for girls that are on their road to pro,
Mhm.
I would probably just say act like you already are a pro. Do the things that a pro would be doing so that you're worthy of getting that pro status when you get there. And don't give up just because maybe one show doesn't go your way. Like, if you want to be a pro, nothing's really going to change once you become a pro. You're going to be living the same lifestyle anyways. So whether it happens, at your first show or your fifth show, like, I was prepared to keep going because it's like, I love the lifestyle. So whether it happened for me at that show or it didn't happen, I would have kept going and I would have kept trying because it's, I just love it. So I would say just keep going if you love it. And if you're working hard, like, you will be rewarded for it eventually.
Beautiful advice. Yeah. Love that. And I appreciate you sharing that. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think that I should have?
No, I don't think so. I think you covered a lot.
We did. Yeah, it was awesome. And I would love if you could let everybody know how they could continue to connect with you, learn from you, and even work with you.
Yeah, so the best way to reach me would probably just be through my Instagram, which is just my name. It's Adair Libbrecht, all one word. I'm usually pretty active on there. I am on like Facebook, but I don't really go on anything like that. So yeah, I would just say through my Instagram would be the best way to get a hold of me. I love, talking and chatting with people and answering any questions anybody has. So definitely shoot me a message and I would love to talk with anybody.
Awesome. I will put your Instagram in the show notes page. You guys, that's always at celestial.fit/podcast. And all of our episodes are organized in alphabetical order in the category section there. So if you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, just scroll through the categories until you get to Adair's name, and you'll be able to find her episode with all the show notes, timestamps, links, and resources. And really appreciate you guys listening every week. It's awesome. Appreciate those of you who take the time to rate the show, leave a review, or post on your story and tag us. You can always tag me at celestial_fit on Instagram. I love resharing and the athletes love it too. So definitely do that while you're listening or after. Let us know what you loved about the episode. And if you ever have anyone you want me to have on the show, just reach out. Always open to suggestions, especially if you know why you want them on the show. That's even better. And with that being said, Adair, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Celeste. This was so much fun.
Of course, I had fun too. And I hope that you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.